Hi, Bath, and welcome to the Media Hack Vodcast. Every day this week, we'll be bringing you the latest gossip, hot takes, and expert views on what's happening with the SU elections. Each day, we'll be focusing on one role and chatting through the key issues to help you decide who to vote for. I'm Ben, and I'm from University Radio Bath, and today I'm joined by Matt Kemp and Mahisha Ramalingam from Bath Time. How are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Good.
thanks.
Excellent. And each day we also have a guest on, and today we have James Mitchell, who is the Student Election Officer. So good morning, James.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So could you kind of just introduce what your role is in the election framework?
So I'm the student representative on the SU's elections committee. So as a committee, we oversee everything about elections, sort of from the nominations, the candidates, running the events, and finally counting the results. So generally, we're there to sort of make sure it's a fair election, support our candidates, and to generally just run the whole thing.
And a lot of us will remember some of the campaigns from last year with a lot of banners and sort of vocal campaigns outside the library. So how are things going to be different this year in the way that candidates are able to run their campaigns?
So this year it's a very different atmosphere because we've not allowed any physical campaigning at all. This is to make it fair for students who might be doing the whole year remotely. So you'll be seeing a lot more people on social media, on websites, and hopefully through the SU channels, trying to promote themselves instead. So whilst it'll be a different atmosphere, we're hoping it'll still be positive, exciting, and hopefully you'll still have that connection with the candidates, even if you might be away from Bath.
And you mentioned that it's going to be entirely digital. So do you kind of think that it's right to term this an almost algorithm election, and it's going to be based on who creates that biggest social interaction through social media?
So I think a lot of the connection will be through SU official channels, which we have a lot more control over. So questions to candidates, which we'll be recording, is a really good way to get to learn a bit more about the policies. And we've also had some updates to the SU Bath website so that you can read everyone's manifestos. We've invited them to record videos of themselves. So I think those will be the key ways that people do engage with the candidates. But of course, there are people using social media adverts quite a lot this year, and sort of combining different ways to actually reach out will be important. But I really do think that it will still be the person with the best points, the most engaged person, and ultimately the person who talks to the most students, as in most years. But this year, obviously, it will just be virtually instead.
Yeah, so are you expecting quite a few sort of creative ideas coming out of the candidates in how they're going to present themselves and make their cases?
So that's what we've been trying to promote this year, try to give them a bit more free rein to be as creative as possible. Seeing as anything that engages more student voters is good for me. And we've also launched our Plant Your Vote campaign this year. So if we get more votes than we did last year, the SU will be sponsoring Pepper the Whale. So we've got some exciting things, but head over to the subath.com to find out more about those.
Yeah, and we should mention at this point that today voting is not open, but from tomorrow you will be able to cast your votes for all the candidates in all the races.
Indeed, and also in the NUS referendum. So make sure you do both at the same time.
Yes, it's a good way to time it, I think, that you can kind of do both at the same time.
Yes, indeed. That was part of the planning for the whole thing, I assure you.
So, as we mentioned earlier, each day on the podcast, we'll be putting the spotlight on one of the election races. And today's focus is on the education officer role. And the two candidates in this race are Ben Davies and Jacob Withington. We're all here at university to learn, so the role of education officer is important in facilitating our ability to do this, while ensuring the university is there to support students in their studying. It's been no secret that the pandemic has significantly impacted the mental health of students, so we'll begin our discussion examining what the candidates are proposing around support. Jacob has proposed a universal reading week to alleviate stress levels and an anonymous malpractice reporting tool, while Ben wants to offer more support to students on placements and review the personal tutor system. So, panel, what are your thoughts on this aspect of the race?
Yeah, it's really interesting if I start off there. I think it was Jacob's idea about a universal reading week. I think that has a great chance to sort of level the playing field for all courses. I know that, for example, I think the School of Management this week have a reading week, which I know isn't shared by all faculties or schools across the university. So it's really interesting to see that as a potential, campaign promise.
Yeah, I quite agree with Matt with that, especially the universal reading week, because I think that would be really helpful, especially, with the workload and stuff. Like, it's going to be easy for them to balance and like take a break, but at the same time catch up with the stuff they have to. So I think the universal reading week is an excellent idea. And I also like how he's making it very inclusive, and he's including everyone, so everyone is equally benefited by whatever propositions he's putting out. So that's very interesting, and I think it's really nice, because the feeling of being like, the feeling of the sense of belonging, it's important for like candidates to create that, and he's creating it, so it's pretty good.
So is there anything more to really say about a universal reading week? I mean, I'm fortunately on a course that does have a reading week. It's usually in semester 1, but I could really see the benefits of that being applied across the board, give students an opportunity to reset, and it might even end up turning into another kind of ISB where societies kind of see the opportunity outside of regular holidays to go on a trip that's maybe cheaper for members and also more engaging, and it means that you don't have to go at the end of January when it's a bit cold.
Yeah, I think that idea of it being a reset is really, really important, though, because I mean, we've probably all experienced one semester just being far too much, and just having that stopgap in the middle to sort of, whether it's catch up or prepare for the next 5 weeks, it really is, it can be a game changer. And it's nice. It's nice to see that both candidates are really sort of trying to give a platform to inclusion and really pushing for that. So yeah, fully in favour.
Yeah, so anything to add on Ben's policies as well about supporting students on placements with more virtual things to keep them engaged?
I was really fortunate on placement that I had a quite strong support network, or at least I felt I had that with university already, but I can completely understand that probably isn't the case across the board. So again, pushing for that inclusion or level playing field that all BAF students have is something that I can really see as being a great value. So yeah, again, another nice idea.
Yeah, and like I also noticed that Ben is like advocating for more study space, which is like legit like what we all want, especially during exam periods. So I think it's good that he's proposing that, especially because like I mean for now it's fine because like we're all online, but like once everything goes back to normal, I think one of the things we're all going to require is like extra study space, because the library gets really packed at times. So and the fact that he's trying to expand it to like city based room makes it even more easier for people, because there are people like who are from student accommodation, but it's like located in the city, so they find it like really hard to like come all the way to the library, especially when you want to like study with friends. So I think this is a great innovative proposed by him.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. And also, I think it's interesting to raise the point of exams, because we all know how busy it can be when exams are happening in person. So I think that something that I'm not sure either candidate has mentioned, but would be a good thing to continue, would be to continue the booking space initiative that's obviously come out as a protocol for COVID security. But yeah, keeping that into exam season, so that means that everyone has a kind of fair and equal opportunity to make sure that they're in the room that they want to be in.
Just on that, actually, I'm pretty sure that Ben has said something about the booking system, or at least reforming it in some way. As he's sort of describing it as pretty poor at the moment, which isn't something I personally would agree with. But interested to see what he'd be proposing around that. Might be one that comes out later in questions to candidates.
Yeah, so James, in a kind of non-biased approach, what's your take on this aspect of the education race?
Well, I think we've seen some good points from both candidates. It'll be exciting to see them develop it throughout the week, especially in questions to candidates. Some of these more popular questions we will be asking them, as well as taking questions from the audience. So I think this is sort of like the point in the week where some of those points really become fleshed out, and we actually start to hear some of the detail in the run up to polls opening.
And another point of discussion is the way that the university moves forward, having had the opportunity to change their delivery and assessment of courses over the past year. Both the education candidates are interested in continuing the recording of lecturers, which of course is a policy that's a mainstay in many an education officer manifesto over the years. On assessments, Ben wants to ensure that deadlines carry at least a 24-hour break between them, while Jacob wants to move away from the memory test model of traditional assessments. So we'll start off with Mahisha on this conversation. Whose ideas do you prefer, maybe?
I actually like what Ben's doing here once again, because I know how stressful it. I mean everyone knows at this point, but like it's really stressful when you like when you like spend like so many hours in an assessment, and then after that you immediately have to move on or catch up with something else, because like the assessment period is like just on and on. It doesn't like you don't get a break in between. So I actually really like that he's prioritizing mental health, because like especially during this COVID time, we know how hard it has been for people. So I think the 24-hour break is an excellent idea, especially, it gives them like enough time to relax and de-stress. And then that allows them to perform more better in their assessment. Because if you're just going to jump into the other one, like I've done it, but like the outcome wasn't so great because, I got too burnt out. But I think that's quite well prioritized as well. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know with my assessments in my courses that quite often they can kind of backload the year and have a lot of assessments at the same time. So I think a 24-hour break would kind of encourage a bit more coordination between different units within departments. So that means that it doesn't become overbearing on students, because, well, it can't be if that is a kind of fail safe that's introduced. So yeah, I'm also quite in favour of this 24-hour break between assessments. Matt, what are your takes on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. Being a politics student, it's not something I would sort of directly benefit from. So I should probably talk more about Jacob's proposal in terms of trying to encourage open book and online assessment post-COVID, which I think is a really interesting proposal. I've certainly experienced over the sort of past exam period that the quality of work that I could actually produce in an exam that was 24 hours, where I had access to resources and stuff like that, was just so much better. So I think it's a better representation of what the student is actually capable of, achieving. And it's not just that memory test model. So yeah, I really empathize and support, I guess, what Jacob's proposing there.
Yeah, and do you think that when we end up going back into potentially more traditional assessments, there needs to be quite a bit of support from the university in reteaching exam technique? Because a lot of us will have forgotten and a lot of us won't be familiar with it, and we won't really know what the expectation is from those that are going to be marking it. So is the emphasis then on the university for making sure that a transition back to traditional assessments is smooth?
That's a really interesting one, yeah. I think it would probably map with how we return to university, because I don't think we're going to go straight back to university as normal come semester 1 of next year. I think it's going to have to be staggered. So if that's not the case, and I'm proved wrong, fingers crossed I am, I think, yes, that's absolutely something the university will have to consider, and it shouldn't just be the case that students that are expected to perform as they have in the past when they've been trained and ready and practiced for the old type of assessment.
Mahisha, any more thoughts?
Yeah, I think regarding that, I feel like Jacob has like some good propositions which would actually help like our transition to traditional assessments much more easier, because I'm noticing that he's going to make sure that you receive adequate feedback on exams and courseworks, and even promote reconsidering like work solutions to past papers. So like when we have like a bit more resources than usual, it's going to actually help us to like transition to our assessments a little more easier, because like we will know like what exactly we're supposed to do, since we have taken a long gap. So I think like Jacob has a better like stronger proposition in terms of like assessments and exams here, especially suitable for like the post COVID term.
Of course. So just before we go, James, any more final thoughts?
Well, this is my third year being involved with elections, and I know it's one thing to say something on your manifesto and another to actually manage to implement it. So it will be interesting to see whoever wins, how far they can actually go with some of these policies.
Yes, I think quite a few past candidates might be accused of pie in the sky thinking almost with some of their policies.
Indeed, but it's all part of the election process, and that's for voters to decide what they think is both feasible, who represents their interest the most. But most importantly, we want people to vote so we can get the most representative candidate into the post. So that's my core aim, is to try and get the most people to vote.
Fantastic. Well, that's all we've got time for on today's Vodcast. So I'd like to thank James, Matt, and Mahisha for their time and their insights.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you.
So there will be another Vodcast tomorrow like this, where the president race will be in the spotlight, and current SU President Francesco will be joining as the special guest. Tomorrow is also the day that you can start voting, so good luck to all the candidates in their campaigning efforts. But it's bye for now.